Can this guy, if he actually wins and he beats Lemieux, could he do so in a way that makes fight fans think, I don't know who would win, him or Triple G. I don't know who would win, him or Canelo.
Well, what I want to say, I've beaten enough dog meat now. Golovkin, you keep saying you want my WBO belt when I was 14 stone out of shape and wasn't in love with boxing. Then you wanted to fight me. Fight me now. Now fight me. We'll see a different story because you'll be punching fresh air.
So let's take a look at the tactical adjustments made by both Canelo Alvarez and Billy Joe Saunders in their recent fight. Getting right into it, the first thing I want to talk about is Canelo's tactic of cutting the distance by inching his lead foot forward. This is a tactic Canelo has successfully used on just about all of his opponents above middleweight, and was no different here. The thing is, the distance between two fighters is determined by the distance between each fighter's lead foot. By inching only his lead foot forward, Canelo puts himself into punching range, but also maintains enough distance with his body to be able to see punches coming. This way he's able to remain more defensively responsible by dodging the incoming punches as he walks into range. This gives him a feel for his opponent's timing, and leads to him starting to land big counters and get the late KOs he's been recently getting. When his opponents realize they can't easily stop him from walking right into punching range, this adds a lot of pressure from Canelo and further breaks his opponents down late in fights. So once again, we see Canelo walking down Billy Joe Saunders, and as he gets into punching range, he only starts to step forward with his lead foot only. And like I said, the distance between two fighters is determined by the distance between their lead foot. As you can see, the green line represents the lead foot of Canelo Alvarez, while the red line determines the distance of his head. As you can see, even though Billy Joe Saunders perfectly times Canelo's step forward with a jab, Canelo didn't bring his whole body with him as he stepped forward with his lead foot, so this jab only grazes him because his head is still far behind. After this, we see Canelo take another step forward with his lead foot and keeps his upper body back. Canelo is still in punching range, and this pressure causes Saunders to throw this left hand to the body, and by keeping his upper body back, Canelo has a crucial split second longer to see the punch and step away from it. Keeping up this safe pressure allows Canelo to draw out attacks, get a feel for your timing, and counter you later in the fight. And so we see in the very next exchange, Canelo continues to step forward, inching forward his lead foot to draw out another punch. And since he has a better feel for Saunders' timing, once the punch comes, he's able to catch and counter it. To my knowledge, we've never seen anyone successfully stop this strategy from Canelo, but we did see that Sergey Kovalev was able to have some success by constantly controlling the empty space with his lead hand. This was used to keep Canelo occupied, draw out punches he could counter, and score points of his own. This seemed to be the adjustment from Billy Joe Saunders. To prevent Canelo from waltzing right in his face, controlling the empty space with his lead hand occupied Canelo just long enough for Saunders to find his openings.
Canelo, the crowd roars. And he said Canelo is just relentless. Let him go, Saunders.
As you can see, Saunders sticks out his lead hand to control the space between him and Canelo and make sure Canelo doesn't just walk right in front of him. You see here tap, jab, and then lands a left hand, and remains defensively responsible by ducking down and smothering Canelo so Canelo can't possibly counter him. This is a basic strategy that we used to always see Floyd Mayweather do. He would throw a punch and then smother to prevent himself getting countered. Whether he would land the punch or miss the punch, either way, it would prevent his opponent from countering him.
Saunders needs to double and triple up that jab. Back up.
That's right, put the shots together, get some work, catch the judge's eyes. Don't just sit there and soak up these big counters.
As you see, Saunders keeps sticking out his lead hand to control the space and occupy Canelo. As you see, he taps him with the jab there, keeps him in place long enough for him to find this left hand to the body. And with Canelo on the ropes, you notice that Saunders keeps tapping him out, keeps controlling him with that lead hand, and as soon as Canelo challenges that lead hand, you see Saunders duck down and is able to dodge the punch, remain defensively responsible. Even if Saunders doesn't land the punch, the lead hand also acts as a defensive tool to alert Saunders to duck and smother if Canelo challenges the lead hand. So controlling with the lead hand works as both an offensive tool to find openings on Canelo and also as a defensive tool to alert him when to dodge and smother. This brings me to Canelo's adjustment, which I think just about everybody who watched the fight noticed, so you might think I'm stupid for pointing this out, but that adjustment was to instead counter Saunders with uppercuts. Since Saunders kept opting to duck under after his punches and smother, Canelo would meet him with an uppercut, which also works well at close range, perfect to counter Saunders trying to smother him.
Straight right hand from Canelo to the body as well.
Says, listen, I don't usually make predictions. I don't tell you what Canelo's going to do or what I think he's going to do. However,
In the last round, 68-66 Canelo. He's only 2 rounds up.
As we see, Saunders attempts to smother Canelo after he throws his punch, and Canelo brilliantly meets him with an uppercut. We see from a better angle as Saunders is trying to clinch with him, Canelo meets him with an uppercut, a punch that works at close range. And then here's a better example where Saunders was controlling Canelo beautifully with his lead hand here, and he even uses it to find the sweeping left hand, but instead of missing with a counter, Canelo beautifully lands this uppercut at very close range to discourage Saunders from doing this again. And then of course this last uppercut, we're going to see Saunders is going to throw a right hook, which misses, so he ducks under, and Canelo knows Saunders is going to duck under and try to smother after the missed punch, so he's prepared for it and loads up this counter uppercut. Saunders ducking into it also amplifies the power, and this breaks his orbital bone, which ultimately ends the fight. The thing is, this option from Saunders is actually very smart. After missing with a punch, he moves his head to avoid getting countered. However, he became too predictable by always ducking down, so Canelo smartly adapts to this with a beautiful counter uppercut, and this adjustment from Canelo is ultimately what wins him the fight. And that's going to do it for this one. It was a really good fight while it lasted, and I hope to see the fight for Undisputed with Caleb Plant in September. Is that the fight you all want to see next? Well, whenever I cover a Canelo fight, you guys like to roast me for my word choices, so I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with this time. As always, thank you all for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. GOAT tier patron Jason Maheenan. And if you want to support the channel to help me produce higher quality videos, consider supporting there. I'll see you guys all next time, and thank you all for watching.